Hello.
Unmute before you say, "Hey, Gauri."
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Alive.
Good to see you.
I know it's been a few days.
Ah, well, hopefully it's productive for you. So
It's been so busy. I won't even
that's
get
good.
started.
That's good. We
Yes,
all
that is
need
good.
that sometimes. Yeah.
Can you believe how cold it's been around here?
Oh my goodness, I've been freezing. I'm like at home. I'm wearing two sweaters, and we're
Mhm.
the heating is on the whole time, and it's still not warm enough.
Wow. Yeah. Hello there. We're waiting for a couple more minutes. We're a few minutes early. So we'll all just kind of stay on mute and wait for our speaker.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and I see several people have joined, and a few are still kind of trickling in. But we have our speaker. So, Aliyah, do you want to go ahead and kick it off?
Hey everyone. Yeah, sure. We are here with Ms. Galloway, who is going to tell us about the scholarships today. I think this time is busy for all our seniors applying for any possible scholarships. These scholarships are coming in early, and I think this presentation will tell us the best way of trying to get as many scholarships as possible, because there's money on the table, and we need to make sure we try to get it all. So I think this is very important topic for all of us, and I will give floor to Ms. Galloway, and I believe she's here. Hi, Ms. Galloway.
Good evening. Yes, I am here. I hope everyone is staying warm in this weather, this frigid weather. And yes, we're just going to talk about applying for scholarships and how students can, put a possible dent in their college cost. I will say, just a disclaimer, I do have dogs, so if they bark, I'm so sorry. And I am on
That's
auntie
okay.
duty right now. So I am on aunt duty right now. I mean, he's pretty preoccupied, but if you guys are ready, we can go ahead and we can get started. This bits and pieces of this workshop, this is exactly what I delivered to the students. And so I did cut a few things out, like about financial aid grants and stuff like that, because it was repetitive from our other sessions. But for the most part, this is pretty much the same exact presentation that I give to the students. And so, yeah, it's just kind of about being motivated and just being intentional when they are completing scholarships, because yes, Miss Lee, a lot of money is left on the table. And if they're not intentional and just following through, then it kind of goes away. So we'll go ahead and we'll just get started.
Great.
Do I
Just
have
give me
access?
1 second. Give me 1 second. Let me double check. Gauri, can you see if it's being recorded?
Yes, it is being recorded.
Okay, perfect, because I'm on full screen, so I can't. Okay,
Yep.
great. Thanks, Ms. Gauri, and Ms. Galloway, you can go ahead.
Awesome. Let's see. Do I have access to share my screen?
You can share your screen, and did you say you're on video? Because I don't see you.
No, I'm not on video.
But you can share your screen, because let me see.
Okay. Oh, it says I can't share while someone's
Oh, wait,
sharing.
hold on. I stopped my share. Hold on. Let me see if I can. You should be able to share. Hold on, because I want you to be able to share. Let me see. Can you try one more time? Because you should be able to share.
Yes, let's see.
Is it letting you?
Oh yeah, I have
Okay,
access.
great. Okay, perfect.
Let's see. Okay, let's see. Can y'all see it?
Not yet. Okay, it's coming.
Let's see.
It's
okay.
slowly
Awesome. All
coming.
right.
Okay, yes, it's here. Yeah, perfect.
All right.
Okay.
So again, for the most part, from the series, hello, my name is Ms. Galloway. I do serve Carnegie, DeBakey, and temporarily HSPVA, but it looks like we were able to hire someone, so more of my time should be coming back to Carnegie and DeBakey pretty soon. And so just kind of a shout out, just very briefly, we did have a workshop. I know it does say seniors, but we did have, we had like maybe 1 or 2 freshmen in there. We had quite a few juniors. It was majority seniors, but we did have our workshop yesterday, actually. It's going to be every Wednesday during the month of February. And we're just really just focusing on scholarships. Now that most of them have finished their college apps, they're getting decisions. Now we're kind of figuring out how to pay for it. Some of the seniors have already been coming in, and they've kind of been showing me some of their financial aid award letters, and some of them are getting stuff, and some of them are like, I don't know how I'm going to cover this. So we're really just trying to give students the opportunity and the time while they're on campus because most of the seniors do have 6th and 7th period off. So it's like you're already at school, might as well just make good use of your time. But thank you guys so much for the donuts. It was very, it was overwhelmingly what we were not expecting, but that was good. We appreciate it. We're probably gonna move it to the theater just because our room's not big enough. But here are some of the students. We have a lot of students in there. I think they also value the information a lot, but yes, it was a success. I think they really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much for the donuts. I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting so much. And they're like, Miss, if you say anything with food, we're gonna come. And I was like, all right, thank you for the heads up. But yes, it was a lot of students in there. With the presentation, we kind of started off with just some tidbits, kind of what I'm sharing with you guys, and the rest of the time was just work time. And most of the students kind of mentioned a lot of scholarships I personally hadn't heard of. A lot of them shared really good tips for how they keep track of their scholarships, which I'm definitely going to take note of. And so it was just really just kind of a space for students to kind of share like what's frustrating about scholarships, kind of what they do to kind of maintain and tame all the applications as well. So it was a lot. I think we all learned a lot. I definitely start the session with giving students kind of the space to vent if need be. And if some of the parents would like to put in the chat, maybe some responses to this question, but I just asked students, you know, what's the most overwhelming thing about applying for scholarships? And it just kind of opened up a lot of really good conversation. A lot of students were just saying, you know, it's very time consuming. Writing essays. One student said it's kind of like a decentralized process, and I definitely agree, but it just kind of opened up a lot of, I think a lot of students kind of were able to relax because they're like, oh, I'm not the only person that's dealing with this. So it was really helpful. But if any parents feel compelled to put in the chat what they think is the most overwhelming about scholarships, maybe over the course of the presentation, we'll kind of dive a little deeper into it. So the whole objective is just to be intentional. I think if students create kind of like a plan, but also put themselves in the space and the environment to do it, I think they'll kind of find it's not super easy to apply for them. Now, and we'll get into this, but I tell students if you're applying to 5, you really need to do 10. If you're doing 10, you really need to do 15. And I tell students, if you really are putting forth your best effort, you're not just kind of submitting stuff lousily, you actually are putting forth the best, you're going to get something. And for the most part, they do. But also just identifying ways to make the process a little less intimidating. We did talk briefly about CAP. The seniors, they just kind of went in uproar about this, but UT did release decisions recently. They received 66,000 applications. They could only take 12,000, and that's not including the students who are auto admit, top 6%. And so students were kind of upset, but CAP is not a bad thing. As you guys know, you kind of go to one of the other ones first and then you transfer in. It's not a straight denial. And so if you guys have seniors on the call, you know, I would just encourage them that it's really not a bad thing. It's okay. UT Austin to Texas is like Chicago to the people in Chicago. It's, you know, it's just very competitive and they just only have so much space. So, I like to do this because class of 2022, I kind of like students to kind of guess how much the previous class brought in. But class of 22 last year, they brought in 21 million in scholarships. And I'm not super competitive, but I definitely always want to do better than the previous year. So I'm trying to get the seniors, if we can do 25 million, that'd be great, or even more than that, but definitely want to beat this number. And so the seniors were like, whoa, like that's crazy. And it's like, yes, but they're totally capable of doing it. Seniors have I have to track all of that information. It's really helpful. One, not because I have to track it. It's a report that gets sent to the principal, but it's important because some of the scholarships that they're sending in, it kind of gives us a good idea of how to advise the juniors, the sophomores, and the freshmen. So for example, if Purdue is handing out this scholarship, and I kind of see it often with students, maybe we can encourage students like, hey, have you considered Purdue? Like a lot of seniors last year got this scholarship, et cetera, et cetera. So if you do have seniors on the call, it is fairly early. So they have been reporting, but not as much as I would like. It's still fairly early, but as the semester does go on, they do need to start reporting that information. Even if it's a school that they don't plan to attend, we kind of need everything. And this is kind of what the form looks like. It's very easy to follow, but seniors are starting to report their scholarships. And so just very briefly, all the different types of financial aid, as students are getting their packages, they're saying, oh, like I get grants, or oh, maybe I'm not getting grants. They're starting to see loans. And of course, scholarships is the big one, trying to put a dent in that cost of attendance. And so again, pretty much financial aid really pays for tuition and fees and room and board. Students were very like intrigued that books and supplies didn't fall into that. It's really an indirect cost. Ooh, excuse me. But as far as financial aid, whenever money gets sent to their financial aid office, really what's being covered is what's being billed by the university. And that's tuition and fees and housing, meal plan if they're staying on campus. And so they were pleased. They were kind of like, oh, okay, the break, because those packages are very intimidating. There is a lot of numbers, there's a lot of words. And so being able to break that down was like extremely helpful. Also, we do have some seniors who, with the EFCs, if a student does have a high EFC, depending on the school, they may not offer the student as much, but, sometimes students have special circumstances and stuff like that. And I'll usually tell students, if you're not pleased or you're not satisfied with your financial aid award letter, you can totally do a special circumstance appeal, or you can appeal it. And on the next slide, this is kind of like a letter of what that looks like. Of course, if students are doing an appeal, a special circumstance, they will probably have to, kind of back up or support their claim. But I mean, all they can say is no, but I have seen where students have kind of challenged it and they were like, well, maybe we are able to give you something and stuff like that. But I do tell students, just bear in mind that the financial aid offices, they're a little stingy. Also, they're audited a lot. So they just have to ensure that they are giving funding to students who need it or students who may qualify based on merit and stuff like that. Okay, work smarter, not harder. The whole thing about the scholarship application. Oh, I'm sorry, just a second. I need to give him ice cream to keep him quiet. Sorry, 1 second.
So, hey guys, I just wanted to say while Ms. Galloway stepped away, that if anyone has questions, you can certainly go ahead and type them in the chat, and Ms. Galloway will be answering.
Yes, thank you. Okay, guys, I'm sorry, I'm back. But yes, work smarter, not harder. The college application process, now that that's over, we have to work on how we're gonna pay for everything. And I usually tell students, everything that you use to apply for your college applications, you should use for your scholarships. So basic. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know I was muted. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, Miss Galloway,
Y'all
you
can hear me
disappeared for
now?
a little bit. Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know I was muted. But with the scholarship application, really, for the most part, is letters of rec, is essays, and it's going to be maybe their transcripts. That stuff is easy. I tell students, you spent a lot of time doing your supplementals, your personal statements. You may have to cocktail a little bit, but please, don't feel as if you have to write a whole new essay or personal statement for a scholarship. Definitely use what you already have. And so, as you can see with most of the scholarship apps, this is what they're asking for. The student aid report, they might not ask for that. Some do if it's one of those scholarships that's based on financial need. But for the most part, they're really wanting letters of recommendation. Those are things that they already have as well. For the most part, some teachers, they're not, some of the senior teachers, they're getting asked a lot for letters of recommendation. So what I encourage the students to do is ask them if they can make the letter of rec a little general. And when I mean general, I mean not saying, a template that's copy and paste, but some of them are very specific in the aspect of, they'll say, I highly recommend this student for, and then they'll, lay out the scholarship. I just tell them, if you can make it as general as possible, not have any specifics as far as what they're applying for, the student can reuse that letter of rec over and over again. So that's actually really helpful as well. And then the transcript, that's something that they can easily get from us as well. But I think the thing that holds the most weight and what kind of prevents students from following through is, thinking they have to write a whole new essay or supplementals and stuff like that. And while the prompts may be a little different, for the most part, they're all saying the different thing, but the same thing at the same time. And so when I mentioned ChatGPT to students, they kind of went in an uproar. And thank you, Miss Aaliyah, for mentioning this, because I had no idea what this was at all. But from my understanding, basically you say whatever your thoughts are and it kind of generates something. And I told the students, just use this as a basis. Of course, you definitely want to go in, add your own voice and stuff like that, but just use this as a basis. If you're kind of, I think one thing that kind of prevented me from applying to scholarships is not really quite knowing what to say. Like, how do I start my essay? Like, what do I even do? And I was one of those students who simply did not apply for scholarships, mainly because I didn't have someone who was kind of like urging me and pushing me to do it. But I kind of tell students, just kind of use this as a reference, a guideline, but add your own voice.
Sorry, Miss Galloway, I have to interrupt. Did they say anything about this, or
They
was
did.
it like on
They were
board
actually,
with it?
they seemed kind of surprised that it was on there, and they were like, so are you telling me to use it? Should I not use it? You know, it seemed kind of, you know, some students, but, you know, they actually gave me a little bit more detail about what it was, and they're like, it's AI, and it doesn't.
Awesome. Yay.
They loved it. They loved it, but they were also
Cool.
kind of hesitant because they were like, I was like, well, to my understanding, it's not plagiarism, but I also provided them with a source that they can run their paper through, and it'll actually tell them if it's plagiarized or not.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
No, thank you, because I didn't know a thing about it until you told me. I had no idea. So no, thank you. And it's actually really cool too. As far as tackling the essay, your personal statements. So for example, at the workshop yesterday, I was working with a student, and one of the scholarships he was doing, it was like, why do you want to be a mentor? And the student was like, I'm not quite sure how to start this, you know? And so one thing that helps a lot, so the scholarship foundation, the organization, the nonprofit, whoever is offering the scholarship, one thing that might be, I guess, appealing to them is, for one, make sure that you're actually investigating the scholarship that you're applying for, like who might potentially be giving you money. So for example, maybe look at their mission, look at their vision, their values, and maybe kind of incorporating that into your personal statement. That definitely does kind of raise their brow. And it's like, oh, wow, the student actually did their research. They know who we are. I mean, of course, everyone needs free money, you know, but I think it's appealing to them that they actually did their research, and it kind of puts them maybe potentially in the yes pile rather than just the no pile. Also, just being extremely succinct and concise. Sometimes reading the personal statement, students kind of, it's a little too much, or they're kind of, you can tell they're going on a tangent. And so pretty much whenever reading them, just like, hey, you need to wrap it up here. You totally don't need this section at all. It's too much. Also, they have to be mindful that depending on what the scholarship is, you have tons of students applying for it. So they don't have time to read all of it. It's best that you get straight to the point. You're concise. And then also the grammar proofread. I tell them all the time, please send it to me. Give me 2 to 3 days. Don't send it to me the day before it's due. I mean, I'll do my best, but definitely get a second eye and get a second ear. But for the most part, I tell them, please use your personal statements, your essays. If they're applying to highly selective schools, they probably had to write maybe close to 4 to 6 supplementals. So don't let it go to waste. For one, the colleges, I think students think, you know, I understand academic, you know, honesty, dishonesty, but those people are not communicating with each other, and it just makes sense. So that's why I say work smarter and not harder. All right, and then too many scholarships to make sense of it all. It's so many. I know it's typically whenever I get scholarships in, I send them straight to the students, but it's sometimes where I'm sending them like 8 scholarships a day. So what can I do to stay organized? What can I do to kind of condense all of this, and which ones should I prioritize first? Which deadlines are coming up? Which ones have a STEM focus? Oh, hold on, I think there we go. Awesome. So here with the scholarships, and these students are doing things like making Excel spreadsheets. One thing that I personally do is I put all the scholarships on my Outlook calendar. And so certain students, if I can, I'll invite them on it, like, hey, this is a good one for you. It's STEM. Make sure you apply to this one. Some of them use sticky notes, which is also extremely helpful. But I think making a list is going to be the best thing for them. I'm a list person, so I make lists, But again, the most impressive thing that I've seen is students actually making Excel spreadsheets with deadlines and stuff like that. And then lastly, the most important thing is going to be follow through. Students start these scholarship applications all the time, but they don't follow through. They're like, oh, well, it's too much. And I usually tell students, if you're applying to a scholarship, especially one that's paying a lot of money, those are usually going to be your most extensive scholarships to apply for. And so I usually tell them it's definitely not going to be a walk in the park. It's definitely a scholarship that you want to take time and prioritize. But I just tell students, just be mindful that they're giving free money away. And so they just want to ensure that, you know, that they're giving money to scholars, people who are actually dedicated to the college admissions process. And then also students are also looking for scholarships. They look at the hot list that our department puts together every month, but also students can find different scholarships through the portals of the colleges that they're applying to. And so, for example, like UTSA, once you're admitted, you have access to a ton of scholarships that maybe their alumni are doing, a foundation in San Antonio, and they're only offering it to UTSA students. And so I usually tell students, just be mindful that, you know, once you apply to a college and you get accepted, please just make sure that you're looking at those scholarships, because, and that's another overwhelming list of scholarships to look at. UT Austin, they usually do their scholarship application with the actual college application, and that's how they make offers as well. And I think we'll kind of talk about the merit-based and stuff like that. So merit-based versus need-based opportunities. A lot of students are, you know, well, for one, if a student comes from a family and they have a high EFC, those need-based opportunities might be very limited for them, because these foundations, these scholarship applications, they're going to want proof of like your student aid report from FAFSA to make those decisions. However, I never tell a student not to apply because they don't feel like they're need-based. Students leave scholarship money on the table all the time. So for all a student might know, even though they don't necessarily, we all have the need, but just because FAFSA says you don't have the need, they could be the only student that applied for that scholarship. And I mean, they just might get it. So I usually tell students, please don't discredit themselves or disqualify themselves, I should say, because they don't feel like that they will get it. I mean, still apply anyway. And for all they know, they might have been the only student that followed through with it, and they may get it. So with the merit-based opportunities, of course, you know, there needs to be some kind of merit. So SAT, GPA. Also with these merit-based opportunities, the scholarship applications themselves aren't super plentiful, but to get the merit opportunities, they're kind of come with your college application. So once a student submits their college app, you know, the admissions committee, they'll look over it and they'll be like, wow, based on this, you know, I think we're going to offer this student this much amount of money, and it's going to come with their decision, with their acceptance letter. And so some students who have been sending in their scholarships, they'll say, you know, congratulations, you've been accepted to so-and-so. We're going to offer you the presidential scholarship. So sometimes the merit-based opportunities are within the college app. Also, if students haven't considered honors college, I think UH, a student got like 6,000 from UH. So if students haven't considered the honors college, that's a good place to receive scholarships as well. And then also a lot of them give scholarships based on leadership and extracurriculars. So I think we had, so the SITGO scholarship, which is for juniors, that one just opened up yesterday. We sent that out. And we're really telling students to make sure that they focus on the we're telling students with SITGO to please make sure that they have a huge focus on their essay. We did have 6 Carnegie students get that scholarship. They did it as juniors, but they'll get it when they go off to college this year. And it's going to be $5,000. That one, they look heavily on leadership and extracurriculars and service. So if you do have any juniors on the call, please make sure that they put a heavy focus on the SITGO scholarship. That one's super, 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 super important. And then the need-based opportunities, those are the opportunities that they may require a copy of their FAFSA just to see, do you have that need? And like I said, all students have the need, of course, but they do look at stuff like that, like family income, etc. Also, when you're applying for scholarships, I tell students, if you're doing 5, you need to do double. Also, I also tell students, a lot of students typically don't do those small ones like $1,000, $1,500, but I tell students those are the ones they need to be doing. For one, those are the scholarships that students are not looking at because they're small amounts. And then for two, if they get a bunch of them, it does add up and it does put it in. So if a student is short maybe $5K for their financial aid, all they need is $5,000. For all they know, they might get a $1,500 one, they might get another $1,000 one, and all you know what, that's like $2,500. So that's half of it. So I usually tell students, please don't ignore those little ones, because if you get them, they do add up for the most part. Down here in the bottom right, you'll see these are 3 of my previous students. I was trying to get Sydney tonight. She probably ghosted me because she's not a public person. She's very shy. But also tell students, even though you are need-based, so let's say you do get the full Pell Grant, that doesn't mean anything. For the most part, Sydney, she was full Pell. She did get some stuff. She's at UT right now. She's a junior, but she still had to come up with another like 10K. So she was still short. So I tell students, even though you see that you have a 0 EFC, you do get full Pell. You definitely, that does not excuse you from anything. That doesn't mean you get a full ride. You still are going to have to come up. And she did. She had to come up with another $10,000, $15,000 for UT. And she did. She applied to scholarships. I think she applied to a lot of those really small ones. And she really did it because I think a lot of her peers weren't really applying for scholarships. They wouldn't follow through. But one thing that helped her submit a lot of them was back to the beginning of the scholarship. They were things she had already. So she already had her essay. We would just print it out. She already had letters of rec. She already had transcripts. They were easy things that we just kind of had to send in. And so Sydney's at UT right now. She's a junior. She's doing applied behavioral health or sciences or something like that. And then we also have Keisha. She's also at UT. I believe she's a junior as well. She applied to a ton of scholarships, and her sister is Kiana, who's the last one you'll see. She's at LSU. She did get a scholarship from LSU, but she was also out of state. So she had to come up with a lot of money as well. So it's just a matter, I think, of students just making sure that they're following through. Also, when I was talking to Sydney, trying to get her to come on, I just asked her, I was like, hey, I said, when you're applying for a scholarship, what was the most helpful thing for you? And she was like, really just having someone just kind of like pushing me to do it. And that was myself. She was like, honestly, I don't think I would have done anything like if you didn't tell me to. So I think it's just a matter of, while I didn't do really anything for her, I kind of gave her the opportunities and kind of encouraged her. I tell students, it's really like, how bad, do you want these scholarships? You definitely have to. She was in there every day. She asked questions, but it's just a matter of making yourself available, I think. And that's the whole purpose of the workshops. You're at school anyway, you have an hour and a half for ADVO. Even if you just come for 30 minutes and just commit your time to something, is doing, something. And a lot of the scholarships we send out, they're extremely, I don't want to say easy, but they don't really ask for a lot per se. It's really just a letter of rec, maybe 1 or 2, their transcripts, and maybe like some responses to a few questions. We actually did this in the presentation. So I gave students some time to kind of make a list of things that they wanted to do, whether it was school related or not, it was outside of school. We set the timer for about 30 minutes. We gave them time to work. And then after the 30 minutes, we took a break. At that time, we kind of shared out, the Pomodoro method does not have to equate to completion. All it means is that you sat down and you did something. And they did, even if it was you just kind of making an Excel sheet of scholarships that you did want to apply to. But for the most part, I just told students it's a way for you to start to get things done. And then we did that first 30 minutes. And I told students at that time, if they wanted to stay, they could. And if they wanted to leave, they could. We did have quite a few students stay. We did another 30 minutes. And I mean, for the most part, they liked it. So moving forward, it's going to be more so of a work time. So we set our timer for 30 minutes. We work, take a break, another 30 minutes, and we work and we take a break. And they actually got like a lot of stuff done. But the Pomodoro method or the technique, I do it a lot for grad school. I just set my timer for 30 minutes. And even if I didn't get anything done, at least I started something, or I have kind of like a point for how to get my work done. And then, of course, we do have school day. SAT is March 22nd. It's a Wednesday. And so we've been pushing students to do Khan Academy. The juniors, if they commit so many hours, they can be eligible to win a free laptop. So we've been pushing students to do that. And then also, I did just send out the recent hot scholarships list. I believe a day or two ago. So students have a whole new list of scholarships for February and March. And this list is going to have a few more junior stuff on there. So the juniors, they've been reaching out. We're starting to work with them, but it has more junior opportunities on there. And then with that being said, I believe that's everything. If anyone has any questions in the chat.
I think there's a few questions in the chat, and the first one is 21 million in scholarship last year. Wow. Are you able to share the breakdown of these monies? Are these mostly private outside scholarships or financial aid packages from an accepted college?
Yeah, so last year, there was a different college advisor last year, Mr. Rosa. Yeah, I tried to get that stuff from him because it is helpful, kind of like what you said, all that stuff is helpful, but I was not able to get in contact with him. But no, yes, that is a lot. Right now, we're still in our early stage. Right now, we're a little over 2 million. And so looking at those packages, I didn't see too many private ones yet, but most of the ones that I have now are actually from universities. And the senior class is a little over 2 million. I think that's with maybe like 10 seniors who submitted stuff. That was only 10 kiddos, but most of that was their college stuff. And students were telling me, they're like, oh yeah, I got this yesterday. They were saying how some of them had gotten scholarships already. And I'm like, well, I need you to do the form so we can kind of have an idea of, where you're getting these scholarships from. But right now it's mainly just like from their, their college or the university's financial aid office.
Okay.
And the way that we I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We put that information in is, let's say, for example, a student got like a $30,000 scholarship for 4 years, and that calculates to 120. So some of the scholarships, we do multiply it out for the 4 years that they might be at that institution. But if the scholarship is a one-time award, we just put it in for a one-time award. Can the same letters of recommendations that go to schools also be sent towards the scholarship application? Absolutely. I just tell students, just make sure you proofread it, because again, some teachers like to be very specific, and it's okay to be specific towards a student's character or a student's work ethic, but sometimes it's difficult to ask a teacher like, hey, I need another letter of recommendation but for this scholarship, because in the letter of recommendation, they may put, I think your student's a good candidate for the university of, and it's kind of like, if a scholarship app sees that, they're like, did they mean to send this to me? But oh no, absolutely. With my kiddos, Sydney, Kiana, they use the same letters of recommendation for their college apps, for scholarships, and for other scholarships. That's why I tell students, some of them, I think they're kind of in their head a little too much. And it's like, oh, absolutely not. There's no kind of like paper trail for other people to be like, oh, well, they used it for this. And then how do we find scholarships that fit the family? So actually right now I'm working on a Google spreadsheet. In the Google spreadsheet, it says the scholarship application or the foundation, it has the due date, and it'll actually say like, does it require letters of rec? Yes. Transcript? Yes. And then it'll say like, is it need-based, merit-based? So I'm kind of working on something to kind of help I guess break that down to where students, because like I said, I send a lot of emails, scholarships, and so that they have it, but it can be overwhelming navigating all of those emails. So I'm trying to put all of the scholarships that I sent into one document so students can kind of organize and customize the spreadsheet as they please. And can parents help fill out scholarships? Please. Please, the students need that like extra push. And while I'm telling them and their peers are telling them, I think some of them just kind of, they're like, I don't think I'm going to get it, or whatever the case may be. But I just tell students, you really just never know. You just have to take a step out on faith. So I think, the more people they have in their corner, like trying to help them and get them to do it, I think that would be helpful.
So, Ms. Galloway, today, did you have any like light bulb moments? Did anybody say like, oh, I saw that email, I'm going to fill it out?
Yes, I did. I had a ton. Because
good.
They'll come to me and they'll say, Ms. Galloway, I was just wondering if we can sit down and, look at over scholarships and stuff like that. And they'll say, I got your email about this one, or I got your email about this scholarship, but, do you mind helping me look through? And I'm like, yeah, that's totally fine. So I'm glad that, it's not falling on deaf ears. They actually like, see it. But the whole thing is follow through. Like I'm telling students, I need you to follow through, because the one big thing for when we asked that question about what's the most, not the most difficult, but the most overwhelming, they're like, some of the scholarship applications are so long. And I just prefaced to them that, you know, this scholarship, this is a $40,000 scholarship. So, you know, no one said it was going to be easy. You know, they definitely want, you know, the student who's going to persevere, who pushed through and who did it. But yes, there were a lot of light bulb moments.
Great.
For the kiddos.
Awesome. I'm glad you organized it. Awesome. Yeah. Yep.
No, and thank you guys for, you know, all of your support and stuff like that. I don't think we would have, I think we would have gotten the turnout without the donuts, but I don't think we would have gotten the big turnout that we did without them, because I did share a lot of information about, you know, ways that they can do it, because a lot of them didn't think that they could use their college essay for it. They're like, oh, so I'm like, yes, you can do that. You know, even if you take pieces from your supplemental, put it in this, you can totally do that. Like, this is something that you've like written before. You should definitely try to use it over and over again as well. I think they learned the most from each other for the most part, and I've learned the most from them as well, because I'm like, wow, you're actually using this resource. The whole Google Doc thing, or the Excel spreadsheet, that's what got me. And I was like, wow, that actually makes sense. A student had hers typed up really, really, really good. Oh, one more question. U.S. non-citizen, yes. So U.S. non-citizen students, or students who might be doing TASFA, there are scholarships for them. While they may not be like as plentiful as the ones for U.S., there are some out there. The really big one is the Dream. It's the Dream.US scholarship. The only thing with that one is like for the state of Texas, it can be only certain universities will take it. Also, we have to keep in mind that Texas is one of the few states that actually even gives state financial aid to students who might not be from here. So there are scholarships on the hot scholarships list. I believe there's a section just for students who might be completing TASFA. So there are some. It's not as much as we would have liked, but there are opportunities for them. When is the right time to apply for scholarships? So I typically tell seniors, I mean, scholarships are available if you can junior year, even before that, even though I know scholarships might not be, it's not a lot for, you know, 9th grade, 10th grade, but really applying for scholarships year round. So if it's an opportunity that a student can go for, because I know some of them are like, oh, we really only want students who are interested in business, or this is only a STEM scholarship, an engineering scholarship. But if it's an opportunity that's right for them, then I tell students they definitely should go for them year round. But I do know that for the seniors this year, they have been applying for them like last semester, but I think now that they're kind of out of that college app season and they're starting to get decisions and they've been accepted places and they're starting to get those letters, they're like, oh, now I really need to start applying for scholarships. So that's why we're kind of dedicating most of this semester to applying for scholarships. Where can I find scholarships for freshman students? So there is a section on the hot scholarships for freshman students. It's not as many, but that would be a good starting point. And then also the counselors and myself, we get sent tons of scholarships that don't make that list. And so typically we send that out to students almost immediately. The students do need to log into Naviance. They can see the scholarships in Naviance, but also whatever email they have on Naviance, it goes straight there too. So they have two ways that they can access it. They can physically log into Naviance using Clever, or they can get them sent to their email and they can check for their email. But there are some, we do push those out to students. Like I said, it's not a lot on the hot scholarships list, but they're definitely out there. Should letters of recommendation be dated? Let's see, or generic to apply to many. Letters of rec, they don't necessarily have to be dated. Now, what I do know, which I thought was not surprising, but I like it. Some of the seniors were saying that depending on the teacher, they were saying that some of the teachers will actually give the student, they'll email like a copy of the letter of recommendation, not a PDF, but they'll email a copy of it and they'll let the student like kind of make adjustments to it. So students are able to change the date, or if it does have a specific university or college in it, the student can take it out. So I think it depends on the teacher, but some of the seniors were saying that they're like, oh, my teacher just sent it to me and they said I can make changes to it, which I thought was interesting. But yes, but they don't necessarily have to be dated. But sometimes you do want to make sure that you're actually reading the scholarship, because some scholarships are very specific as to what they're looking for. Like a student yesterday, a scholarship said they wanted a letter of rec from one core teacher and from like a sponsor. So that was actually pretty specific. But for the most part, when I was doing them for the students, I didn't really put a date on there. And if I did, I would just change it. Do all public schools offer national merit scholarships, or is it variable to school? Oh yeah, year to year they must pick their top choice college on the SAT, right? Yes, they do. Now, to my knowledge, I don't really know of a lot of public schools that do offer national merit. It's mainly your highly selective private schools, but again, it is variable every year. But they do have to put, when they're taking the SAT, they do have to put their top choice on there, so that they can do math, so that they can get national merit. I'm sorry. Let's see. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, thank you for the Texas X's. Looking for reviewers for scholarships, anyone's interested. So just a little, I guess, a little background information. I actually used to work for a foundation. I had 4 high schools, and we actually we offered the scholarships to students, and we actually reviewed them. So that's kind of what I did in the summers. If the students met all the qualifications for the scholarship, it was in the yes pile, and if they didn't, it was in the no pile. But yes.
Ms. Galloway, thank you so much for all the information. You can all keep sending your questions. We have our guest alumni speaker here. So Andrea can kindly agree to talk to us, and I believe she will be able to tell us her story. Andrea, if you're here, you can just unmute and go ahead.
Hi.
Hey.
Yes, my name is Andrea. Hi, my name is Andrea Urkel. I am an alumni of CVHS. I am currently attending and my major is neurobiology. So I'm sorry, I'm not really sure what questions I'm supposed to answer. Like, would you like me to talk about my experience so far, or the process of college applications?
Yeah.
think-
Hi, Andrea. Thank you for joining us. If you could tell us a little bit about your experience in the college application process, as well as it relates to the full application, but also if you went about applying for scholarships, how you found them before, so when you were in high school, and then what your experience was when you got into college.
Okay, so the entire college application process definitely was a lengthy one. And looking back on it, there are some things I would change about what I did. So personally, I applied to quite a lot of schools, which I would say was kind of not a mistake, but I feel like I could have applied to less, or I wish I would have stayed with. So I believe that people tell you to apply, or as general advice, people say to apply to safety schools, target schools, and then reach ones. But I applied to too many in one category, so I feel like it limited me from trying to go more. Though I am happy where I am, definitely. But to my so during the college process for me, I did a lot of research about schools. I had a book, I remember, and it had a list of pretty much every single college in the United States, and it just had like a bunch of paragraphs about the city that it's in, the type of kids, the environment, typical test scores and whatnot. So I would go through the how many is too many? I applied to about 25 schools. But yeah, in total.
That's impressive. Was that too many?
Yes, most definitely too many. I would say a reasonable amount. I would say, okay, so in terms of safety schools, I would really only pick 1 or 2. The name of the book, I'll have to look that up for you. I'll get back to you on that.
You can send it to us later and we can put it in along with the recording.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Yes, so I would suggest making categories of safety schools, target schools, and reach ones. Safety, really, I would say you only need one, because that's the school you know for sure that you'll be offered a spot there, and if nothing else works out, that's where you will end up going. And for target, I would say around maybe 4 schools that you are a little bit unsure about, but still meet the general requirements in terms of standardized test scores and GPA and whatnot. Yes, and then reach schools, I would say as many as you desire. Sorry, my my advice is a little bit all over the place because there's so much to share. But another thing would be, if you have a school that you really, really want to go to and you're able to apply early decision for it, I would definitely suggest going for it. But since personally, there wasn't one school that I really wanted to go to, not a dream school or anything. I just had schools in different cities I wanted to attend, so that's why I didn't end up doing early decision. But I would suggest that to any individual who really wants to go to a certain school. And then I made a separate email. I think one really important piece of advice I would give is to make a separate email for all college applications, because that kept me so organized. As well as separating, because there are different deadlines, like early action is a possibility versus I forgot the regular decision deadlines. So I would make documents and just paste all the supplemental questions from each school and organize it that way, and then just fill everything out. But I did have someone to help me. He was kind of a coach, kind of a peer, who was a teacher at CVHS many years ago, but I found out about him and asked him to help me. So he would, in the way that he would revise my essays and just give me advice grammatically and then in terms of ideas as well. That's not totally necessary. I would say I didn't entirely, if you're looking for that kind of support for your essays and all that, I think that a teacher that you trust would even be best. A teacher and even peers, to be honest. That some people say not to let your friends read. I would say personal essay, definitely let your peers read. A question in the chat: where do I attend? Did I get any scholarships as a junior? Sorry. I go to UC San Diego, and as a junior, I did not receive any big scholarships. I did tennis, so I applied to some scholarships from different associations. Like one, for example, was HLTA, and they currently give me a certain amount of money per quarter, which gets added to my, or sorry, subtracted from my current tuition. So I found small scholarships like that. Yes. And about searching for scholarships, I remember having trouble at first, a lot of trouble, because I didn't know where to turn. Not really. I felt like not much information was being shared, but I just started searching. I really did Google searches, and there are a lot of teachers who know about certain scholarships. Maybe look for things in your field of interest. And yeah, in terms of scholarships, I did apply for financial aid, but didn't really get any. And also I'm an out-of-state student, so I pay more than what an in-state student would receive. So currently in terms of that kind of financial aid, I do not receive any, but sorry, again, my advice is a bit unorganized, but is there anything else
You're
specific
still very,
that I
very
should
helpful.
cover?
Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, it's such a helpful insight. I think for everyone, for anyone who is still waiting to apply, I think it's just amazing. So did you also look at the scholarships in your senior year? Like Ms. Galloway is trying to get seniors organized.
Sorry, did I look?
Were you able to look at the scholarships in your senior
Oh,
year? Yeah.
yes. Yes. So scholarships in junior year, I would say I began research and looking for things. I didn't necessarily apply to as much. Like, I know that National Merit Scholarship was one, but that's like it's from the school, and it's something that everyone technically gets put into the application pool for. But yes, so as a senior, I did apply because some scholarships have age requirements or grade level requirements. So they don't allow you to apply unless you are a certain year.
Yeah. For
But
you,
from what I remember,
what would you say was the most, like, for you, what did you think was the most stressful part of application? Like
sorry.
what did you think was like the most stressful? Because we know it's the essays. Was it the essays for you as well?
The most
Stressful part of the application process.
sorry, I don't understand.
Sorry, the most stressful part of the application process.
Sorry, could you type the question? Because
Let me type it up as well.
I think for I think it's them making the time to actually do it. Because I think once they actually sit down and like, oh, and they get in the groove, they're like, this isn't like too bad. I think it's just them making the time to do it, and actually encouraging them that, hey, I think you actually could get this, you could put a dent in it. I think that's where I think someone said, where can like parents help the most? I mean, I know you guys encourage your students already. I think just also you can tell them, like, I know Ms. Galloway has been sending them. We've talked to her. I think that helps because they think that, like, I don't know anything when speaking to you guys, but I do. So sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, I talked to your mom this morning. They're like, you did? I'm like, yeah, I did. We had a whole conversation. So I think just telling, like, letting them know that you know more than they think that you do. You really do. I think that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think it's very, very true. It's all about the time.
So, Ms. Galloway, I had a question for you that I just put in the chat about, are there any scams related to scholarship applications that we should be aware of?
There are, but in one way that you can kind of know, you know how sometimes you get like text messages and they look just kind of weird. I think it's the same with scholarships, because students will come to me and they're like, I'm not quite sure if this is legit or not. And one way that you can know, for one, is their contact information on the page? Do they have their location? That's one way that you can know if they're scams or not. For anything that we send is definitely not a scam. It's definitely been vetted. There's also a resource called Virtual Job Shadow. I know a lot of people have heard of that before. If students kind of need an idea of what they want to do as a career moving forward, we typically have students do Virtual Job Shadow, but within Virtual Job Shadow, there is a scholarship search resource. And so students are able to go in and they can filter it regarding location. So today we were working with a student who was trying to do they got accepted to Penn State, but Penn State was not giving them really any aid. And so we were able to at least attempt to see, like, okay, are there any scholarships that he can apply for in Pennsylvania and not be a Pennsylvania resident? So Virtual Job Shadows, and it's vetted. So any scholarships that pop up in there, they're definitely not a scam, not authentic. I was wondering if there's enough time, I kind of wanted to show some of the parents what kind of messages were going out in Naviance. I have it pulled up. I don't know if there's time.
We do have 5 minutes, so you can go ahead.
We do. Yeah, we have 5 minutes. Yep.
Okay. Just really quickly. So on here, this is what I can see on my end. But the students, these are just kind of all the stuff that we send out, and it's a lot. It's a lot. But if you do have any juniors at Carnegie, I actually just sent that out earlier. Princeton Review is doing kind of like a free practice test. Is virtual, so just tell the students they need to log into Naviance to register for it. But we post like the SIGO scholarship. If you have juniors, that's a big one that they need to apply for. The seniors were telling me, I think, like I said, we had 6 Carnegie seniors get it, but they were telling me that none of the students really went for it. So that's why they got so many Carnegie students. But it's just a ton. This is like all the stuff that we send out. As you can see on the 27th, I was going kind of crazy. I sent a lot of stuff. So the students just have to log into Naviance and just see. And if they have their Naviance connected to their school email, which most of them do, it comes there too. But like we send out tons and tons of stuff. It's just a matter of them kind of looking. But like I said, we're creating something to kind of keep everything in-house to where they don't have to go through a bunch of different emails.
And Ms. Galloway, is this part of Naviance visible to parents?
No, not that part. That's kind of like the admin side. But when the parents do log in, they kind of see their student stuff. And so they are able to go to like the messaging box and they're able to see everything that's been sent out.
And they can see the list of scholarships?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep. For all the parents on the call, I did put a link to where another meeting that Ms. Galloway had gone through how to log into Naviance and what the process was. So if you were interested, you could click on that and watch that video as well.
Let's see, do we have any other questions? Yeah, I think the big thing is students just making the time, or maybe they don't feel as if they're going to get it, so they don't attempt. But that's not true.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Galloway, for joining us once again, and Happy New Year and welcome back. I'm sure all the students are well adjusted and back in their school routines. If there are any further questions, you can either leave them in the chat or you can send a message to the PTO and we'll make sure Ms. Galloway gets your messages and she can answer them directly as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galloway, and thank you everyone so much.
No, thank you guys. I'm sorry for the little guy. He just cannot sit still.
Oh, it's okay.
We all know how it goes.
Oh, we all have that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You guys be safe and stay warm.
Oh my
Thank
gosh,
you.
yes.
You too.
It's
I
super cold
know.
out there.
I know. Oh, that was such a good meeting.
I know. It really was. It really was. So we will stop the recording now.
Yes.